My name is Susan Cook, and I'm the Chancellor at this Springfield campus of the University of Illinois. I'm pleased to welcome this distinguished group of leaders and all of you to this important press conference this morning. I'm especially pleased to welcome Illinois' senior U.S. Senator and Springfield resident, Dick Durbin. It's great to have you here, Senator Durbin. We're really honored by all of your presence today. As many of you know, the Springfield campus is known for leadership lived, a reputation that acknowledges the spirit of innovation and the commitment to public engagement that has really been at the heart of this campus since its very beginning. That spirit lives on today and as we continue to grow in both size and reputation. Today, our students here at UIS are among more than 80,000 students studying at one of the three campuses of the University of Illinois. Each one of those students is a potential economic engine for our state. Members of this coalition to invest in higher education know and believe in this potential. I'm grateful for the leadership that's being shown here today. Again, welcome and thank you for being here. And I'll turn it over to Dave.
Good morning, and thank you, Chancellor Cook, for the opportunity and the venue here to talk a little bit about the Coalition to Fund Higher Education. My name is Dave Treader. I'm president of the Federation of Independent Colleges. It's an advocacy organization that represents 60 not-for-profit colleges throughout Illinois. But today I'm wearing the hat as a member of the Coalition to Fund Higher Education. As many of you are well aware, we are now 8 months into the state fiscal year, have passed all the historic markers of not having a budget. And so that has a devastating effect across the state, first and foremost on the students that attend public universities, community colleges, private institutions. And so the coalition is comprised of the publics, the privates, the community colleges, members of labor, mayors, business leaders. And our effort here is to continue to tell the story about the extremely negative effects of not having a budget. And so, again, as I mentioned, we're 8 months into not having a budget. I think we're past the point of telling the public and our students what might happen. We can now demonstrate what is happening. And what that means is that most colleges and universities have depleted their reserves, bent over backwards to try to maintain continuity for the students to continue in, and now we're 2 semesters in, and that is close to running out, and already you're starting to see enrollment numbers drop in second semester, and certainly some major public institutions having to talk about not making payroll or potentially closing. So we're here today with some of the members of the coalition to tell their story, and I will step off to the side, happy to take questions later, but for now, let me introduce Senator Dick Durbin.
Thank you very much, Dave. It's a great honor to be here at UIS. I have a deep, warm, long attachment with UIS, formerly SSU, and happy to be back here today. But I'm sorry to be here under these circumstances. Last month, we reached an agreement out in Washington. You know, they say Washington's so dysfunctional and it's so partisan and they can't get anything right. Well, we do once in a while, and we did when it came to the budget. We got a 2-year budget in Washington. It was a bipartisan budget. Democrats and Republicans, both sides had to give. And when it came to education, we were able to increase the Pell Grant, which is important for students from low-income families struggling to go to school. We were able to make it a year-round Pell Grant. We also have reauthorized the TRIO program, an important program for many young people to transition into higher education, and we reauthorized the Perkins Loan Program, which helps some 30,000 students in the state of Illinois. So I'm glad to say that we've done our part. But look at what's happening in our state. We have reached the breaking point when it comes to this budget impasse. When I think of all of the innocent groups that have been victimized by the failure to have a budget in this state, it is just unacceptable. Daycare, working mothers around our state want to leave their kids, like some of these beautiful young kids in the room here, in the hands of a safe, healthy, positive environment. Cutbacks in daycare for working mothers. If you happen to have someone in your family who is mentally challenged, mentally disabled, cutbacks in those programs. What are those folks supposed to do? Honest to goodness. When it comes to some basics, prosecutors in counties all across our state can turn to redeploy Illinois so they can avoid sending young people to prison, juvenile prisons that cost $100,000 a year per inmate, per juvenile inmate. Instead, Redeploy Illinois $5,000, a community program that works and has now been discontinued in 38 counties because of this budget impasse. And what brings us together here today is the breaking point when it comes to higher education in Illinois. We have reached the point now where schools across this state are seriously considering whether they can go forward, seriously considering whether they can open the door. And students and their families who need a helping hand from a MAP grant, a couple $1,000s maybe, just to enroll and be a college student, are stepping away and saying, guess we're just going to have to drop out for the time being and see what happens. That is a sad commentary on this great state. It embarrasses me. It troubles me to think that we've reached a point that there are so many innocent victims across this state. You know, politicians read profiles in courage and hope someday they'll show courage when it comes to leadership. It takes no courage to fail to put together a budget and watch innocent people suffer across our state. That doesn't take courage. We need leadership. I understand this Wednesday the governor's going to give his budget message. When he is in the Capitol, he'll be there with the leaders of the House and the Senate. I would propose that Jesse White lock the doors and tell him to stay until you get your job done. Enough is enough. And now we have to realize that if we jeopardize higher education for these students, we could pay a price for a long, long time to come. I wouldn't be standing here today if it weren't for a college education. Mom and Dad had 8th grade educations, but they knew it was the right thing for me to do. And here I am with an opportunity to serve this state. I want to introduce you to a young lady I met. Jamie Anderson is from Stillman Valley. She went to Stillman Valley High School. She is studying social work.
Yes, sir.
And now you're on.
Hi, everyone. As he said, I'm Jamie Anderson. I'm a senior here at UIS. And I cannot stress enough how important this investment is for all college students across the state of Illinois. I am one of about 800 students at this campus who currently receive MAP grant funding, and I would not be the student I am today if I did not receive the MAP grant funding. I'm from a low-income family. I grew up in a house of 8, and I was a foster child, and my family just did not have the money to send me to college. So it's been my experience here has been very crucial and dependent on the MAP grant funding and all the other funding that I've received from the state of Illinois to be the student I am today, to be the leader that I am today. We're playing with people's dreams here now. 8 months into this, people are having to worry about if they can come back to school next semester, if they could be the lawyer that they sought out to be, if they could be the social worker that they sought out to be. So it's very important that we come together and make a decision so people don't have to worry about, am I going to be in college next semester? Am I going to be in college next year? How am I going to pay for college? College is not an easy expense to pay for. Nobody can just come up with $20,000 to $26,000 to go to school. So that's why it's important for us to take in consideration that we need to save MAP grant funding. So I would really appreciate it if we could come together and get this decision made so there won't be students like me or like some of my colleagues and some of my friends having to worry about, am I going to be in school next semester? And I would like to introduce Michael, who is a student at SIU Medical School.
Good morning. My name is Michael Clanahan. I'm a fourth-year medical student at SIU School of Medicine here in Springfield. I'm currently the student body chairman. My hometown is Belleville, Illinois. Thank you for letting me speak here today on behalf of Illinois Public Education from the perspective of a current medical student and Illinois resident. Illinois' excellent system of public higher education is one important reason that this state is my home and has been my family's home for generations. My father and his father before him were students and then graduates of public universities here in Illinois. Both attended U of I and both earned their places on the bronze tablets. Both then decided to stay in Illinois to follow their dreams and serve the people of their communities. My father and then my grandfather as town CPA in Heron, and then my father as head of a general surgery practice in my hometown of Belleville. I likely would not be here today, an active citizen of Illinois, about to graduate with my medical degree had that avenue of education not been available to them many years ago. I grew up in Belleville and wandered out of the state briefly to attend Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, for my undergraduate degrees in biology and jazz studies. When it came time to decide where to further my interest in medicine, like my father before me, I had many options. I had acceptances to other larger programs around the United States, but decided to come home to SIU. So then why SIU? I believe the mission statement of our school perfectly states my sentiment. The mission of Southern Illinois University School of Medicine is to assist the people of Central and Southern Illinois in meeting their healthcare needs through education, patient care, research, and service to the community. When searching for medical school, I found that SIU was the only program in which I could serve a community that most reflected the people in and around my hometown. Being close to home and a family that likes to send you back with food is pretty nice as well. If SIU School of Medicine did not exist, I likely would not be here today in the state capital. I may have had to go to medical school out of state, which may have been more difficult to get into, as statistics show that state medical schools prefer their own residents. Or I would have to choose a private medical institution, which comes with higher costs of tuition and ultimately, consequently, loan burden. For those who could pursue their studies in private medical schools, heavy debt is a virtual certainty. Medical students with large debt often cannot afford to practice their medicine in small-town, rural practices, the very places in central and southern Illinois in critical need of physicians. For the student with a low-income background, medical school would likely be out of the question. My class is 100% Illinois residents, many of whom come from low-income backgrounds and small towns of less than 10,000 people. The trend in medical education currently is that you tend to stay in practice where you trained, and this is no more evident elsewhere here in central and southern Illinois. Many of the physicians you see in Springfield are from here and have trained here. We want to stay here and practice here as well because, again, we are most like the people we serve, and this is our home. I feel confident in saying that without SIU School of Medicine, the hospitals in central southern Illinois region would not be the exceptional medical institutions that they are today. On a larger scale, I do not believe that Springfield would be the city it is today, a regional medical center for citizens throughout central and southern Illinois, without the outstanding choices it has to offer for higher education. The physical health of our community is tied to the strength and growth of its medical systems. These medical systems are what they are, I'm proud to say, in large part due to SIU School of Medicine and the state of Illinois' investment in my public medical school. The economic health of our community is tied to the thousands of jobs that exist as a result of healthcare organizations and higher education. These jobs exist directly as a result of Springfield's clinics and hospitals. Physician assistants, nurses, techs, system administrators, and others benefit from that health and partnership established by the school and education offered by SIU School of Medicine and other higher education institutions within the area. I firmly believe that without SIU School of Medicine, this hub of central and southern Illinois healthcare excellence would and could not exist, and our community would be poorer for it. Illinois is my home. Public higher education in my state is second to none and essential for the health and well-being of Illinoisans throughout the state. The state's investment in public higher education is good medicine. I urge you to continue to fund higher education. Thank you.
Karen Davis, looks like you're up.
Hello, I'm Karen Davis, the Director of Planning and Economic Development for the City of Springfield. Mayor Langfelder and I, both alumni, truly understand the critical and importance of higher education. And in its simplest sense, education ends the cycle of poverty. This strikes me very personally. In my family, I was a first-generation college student, having graduated here from UIS. I received the benefits of financial aid. Because of my education coupled with determination and opportunity, I am here standing before you today. In order to compete on a national and international scale, we need to first stress the importance of education and job training. Illinois residents deserve the opportunity to better themselves and their family. And we, as members of government, public, and private institutions, need to ensure we are helping remove any obstacles that stand in their way of betterment. Unfortunately, with this budget impasse, government is now causing obstacles versus creating bridges. In order for our economy to grow, we need a diverse and educated workforce. We need to give our educational institutions the resources they need to develop these diverse minds. Our state's ability to compete at a high level with states and countries and grow opportunities for our citizens and businesses is directly connected with our investment in human capital. Without it, as evidenced over the last decade, we will continue to fall further behind. We urge the legislature and Governor Bruce Rauner to please pass a much-needed state budget. Our future depends on it. I'd like to now introduce Jennifer Gill, who is the superintendent of Springfield District 186.
Good morning, Chancellor Cook, Senator Durbin, and the other renowned speakers here today. It is my honor to come alongside my fellow alma mater students and discuss what is very important, and that's the pathway we have for our students here, not only in Springfield, but in every school district across the state of Illinois. What we know to be true is that it is important at the very earliest stages of learning that Senator Durbin talked about, ages 0 to 3, that education be paramount in a student's life, and that continue, and they have a pathway and a vision and a dream of where they can go once they're finished with their pre-K through 12th grade education. We know that the 125,000 students in our state that receive those monetary award program grants, that it's essential that they have those so that they can continue to learn, as we heard today, so that they have a dream and a vision. Chancellor Cook eloquently wrote yesterday in her article in the State Journal Register about a program called AVID, Advancement via Individual Determination. Today you will find in our classrooms across Springfield and many classrooms across the country this program which is advocating for students having a determined focus for their future, one where they are writing letters to universities, receiving the pennants, hanging them in the hallway, celebrating the alma maters of their teachers, talking about college and career and what they can do with their next steps in life. But in Illinois, we want those next steps to be right here in our public institutions and our colleges within the coalition across the state of Illinois. We also, in our public education system, say that we want to be an important part of our community and raise our citizens so that they come back here and serve our cities and allow our communities to grow, as we heard from some of the testimonies. Without funding and with all of the public news that's out there about education, our juniors and seniors who are looking for their next steps are choosing to go south, north, east, and west of Illinois. And that's just simply tragic. We need to keep our students here in the state of Illinois and understanding what they can do to help our great state. So I stand here alongside you today, having a family. Between my husband and I, we have 5 degrees from public universities in the state of Illinois. We believe in what we're doing here, and we want to continue to see that grow. So I urge our legislators to make the agreement that they need to do to come together. And I speak not only for the pre-K through 12th grade system, but for our higher education system in saying that we're hurting students each and every day without making any decisions. Thank you. And I would like to introduce now, it looks like Lynn Fisher from the Illinois Federation of Teachers, talking about the teacher-faculty perspective. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks very much for the opportunity to talk today. I'm a UIS faculty member, and I'm president of our faculty union, which is part of UPI 4100, University Professionals of Illinois. Like many of my colleagues here, I moved to Illinois as part of my career in public higher education, and I really care, like my colleagues, about that mission. I want to talk to you today about how Governor Rauner's failure to pass a state budget and to fund higher education is hurting students, families, and communities. Public higher education is, to me, a cornerstone of the prosperity and promise of this state. Students build their hopes for future success on the dream of a university degree, and public universities exist to make that dream accessible. Governor Rauner is holding all of those dreams hostage to push an extreme anti-union agenda. But Illinois public universities are in crisis right now, as we've heard from many of these speakers today. 2/3 of the way through the academic year, as you know, universities have not yet received a dime in state support. And the state, most critically, has not paid its bill for those MAP grants awarded to students based on financial need. Chicago State University is at risk for closure very soon. Layoffs at other state universities and across the state threaten campus operations and imperil local economies. A failure of state funding places all of our state universities at risk and endangers our ability to attract and retain students and to recruit and retain high-quality faculty and staff on into the future for years to come. It also endangers the communities and the regions that are served by those colleges and universities. Students who were awarded MAP grants are now, tragically, being told they may have to pay those funds back. They were covered by the different universities and colleges across the state. Imagine what it means to a student to have promised financial assistance turned into debt at the end of a college year, and likely a financial burden potentially for years to come. These are broken promises to our students, to our communities, and to the future of Illinois. How many will go into debt to make up for the governor's failure to pass a budget? And how many of our young people, as already alluded to by Superintendent Gill, will leave college or leave Illinois altogether? Governor Rauner has said he thinks he's winning. It's just taking longer than he thought. But to me, this is not a game. To my colleagues, this is not a game. Our students cannot wait. They're here right now, planning for graduation, for internships, for jobs, for that bright future. High school students, as we just heard, are also looking ahead to where they're going to go to college now. These students and their families are definitely watching what's going on across the state. And what they see is that promises are being broken. Governor Rauner this week has the power to end this crisis by putting a stop to his games and funding MAP grants and higher education now. Thanks for the opportunity to speak, and I'd like to introduce Brenda Jeffers, the Chancellor of St. John's College of Nursing.
Good morning. My name is Brenda Jeffers, and I serve as Chancellor of St. John's College, and I am very concerned about the impact the budget impasse is having on our ability to educate and train nurses. St. John's College is a private special purpose college, and our purpose is to educate students in the nursing major, which is the last 2 years of their academic program. We work with public universities. About 70% of our students come from Lincoln Land Community College, and they enroll in St. John's College for the nursing major, for the baccalaureate program. We graduate approximately 55 nurses each year, and of those graduates, approximately 90% receive some type of financial assistance. Many of the students enrolled at St. John's College work, and increasing work time is difficult for our students in particular. During the nursing program at St. John's College, our students are committed to face-to-face classroom or clinical instruction between 24 to 32 hours per week. Despite this large commitment of instruction time, some of our students do work, and they make an effort then on the weekends, etc. But of course, that does not include study time, which we know is imperative for success. Without predictable funding for the programs such as MAP grants, prospective students are more likely to look at nursing schools in other states. Because the vast majority of our nursing graduates go on to nursing careers here in Illinois, we simply cannot afford to lose students to out-of-state programs. There is a nursing shortage across the United States, and as our population ages here in Illinois, also the shortage of nurses will continue to grow. So adequate funding for education is not only critical for our future of our state's economy, it's also critical for the future of our state's healthcare system. Our elected officials are accountable to the citizens of Illinois. I urge lawmakers from both parties to put aside their differences and come together for a budget resolution, including fully funding MAP, which our neediest students depend upon to become skilled and contributing members of the Illinois workforce. Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce Sherry McLaughlin, President of the Illinois School Counselor Association.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator Durbin, Chancellor Cook, for having me here today. I wear a lot of hats. I'm also a high school counselor at Jacksonville High School. I'm an alumni, graduate of Eastern Illinois University and the University of Illinois-Springfield, where I earned my counseling degree. So on behalf of all of those organizations, all the students across the state of Illinois, and the counselors in the state of Illinois, thank you for having me here. It is imperative, as you've heard from all the speakers before me, that we get a budget and support these students. This is our future. Education is the key to everything. We have businesses telling us that we need to instill the Common Core standards, that our students need to be ready when they come out of high school to go into college to be successful in the business world. As counselors, we not only do college and career readiness, but we also support social emotional learning. All of these organizations need the budget. Public education needs the budget in order to go out and serve and keep the jobs here in Illinois. When I was a student at Eastern Illinois University, a young man that was studying business said, I am going to open up a business and I'm going to support myself. I'm an entrepreneur and I'm going to help support myself through college. And that was Jimmy John. And we smiled at him and we said, okay, let's see how this goes. And the day before his grand opening, he invited some of us and said, come over and try my sandwiches. I'm really, really nervous, so come try my sandwiches. And he had the sayings on the wall, Mom wants you to eat here, and freaky fast service. And we walked in, skeptical, and we tried his sandwiches, and we were astounded. We were so thrilled for him. He did that here in Charleston, Illinois, in the state of Illinois, and he's all over the world. He had an opportunity to have his dream. We're talking about the future of college students that are presently enrolled, but the future of all of our students, our grandchildren. So I'm asking you to pass the budget and to save Illinois. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think we'd be willing to take a few questions.
I noticed only one person kind of named names about what's happening downtown. Is it time to put a more fine point on who's to blame for the impact?
Well, I don't, certainly we've had budget bills move through. Some of them have been vetoed. There's one that's will be, we think, sent to the governor's desk tomorrow, I think, which funds part of higher ed, MAP, and community colleges. But I think clearly the impasse, you have to look at leadership in the General Assembly and the governor getting together. I don't know if it serves a great purpose to point fingers exactly at who's at fault, but clearly we've never been this far into the budget process without a budget. So our goal here is to just continue to draw attention that they meet immediately and figure this out.
Like devil's advocate, I mean, doesn't it kind of take two to tango? I mean, it's not just the governor who's being staunch with his remarks. I mean, the speaker, he's been right there with him. I mean, is it just a symptom, the whole system is at fault, not just one or two people?
Well, I mean, I think it draws that into question. But again, as I said, we still have confidence that they will get together. And if they're looking for a crisis point, I think we're past it already. So again, that's we're not talking about prospectively what might happen here within higher education and for MAP students. We're here You're seeing the damage being done. In my opinion, there's already long-term damage being done to higher education in the state. And if that's not a reason for everybody to get together 8 months into a fiscal year without a budget, I don't know what is.
Well, Mr. Treader, what gives you that confidence? I mean, we're as tired of hearing about the budget ramifications as you are, and the social service people are talking about them, and, you know, nothing's changed. So what gives you that confidence?
Well, I think part of it is, one, we've never let this happen before. We've never gone this far. I think it would be incredible if we walked away from higher education for a year. So the pundits are out there saying we won't have a state budget this year, we won't have a state budget for 4 years. We're here to remind the legislature and the governor we absolutely have to have this. And remember, we've talked about students, we've talked about the institutions that provide education to those students. Illinois higher education is a huge economic engine. 175,000 employees throughout the state, 50 billion with a B in economic activity. I've told others if you were to look at a business in the state that was threatening to leave with that kind of magnitude, we'd bend over backwards to keep them here. Why are we doing that to a really gem of a system of public and private institutions that's already here?
Every state institution is represented by a representative and a senator, state senator. Are you leaning on them? Can you talk about what you're doing to try and maybe make this a grassroots effort to get funding instead of worrying about the governor and speaker and senator?
Sure. I mean, it's really kind of all hands on deck. So certainly we're talking to the legislative leaders and their staffs, but we are reaching out in a grassroots fashion to each individual member because we don't think higher education is a partisan issue. I mean, I went to Illinois State for undergrad and U of I for grad school. I wasn't thinking about whether it was a Republican school or a Democratic school. It's a nonpartisan issue. They ought to get together and figure this out.
Senator Durbin, a two-part question, if I may. The first one related to the presidential visit. You flew on Air Force One with the president into Springfield last week. He obviously has 2 children that are approaching college age. Has he made any comments to you as a parent of kids that are looking at college soon as to what his view on the current budget situation is with education?
Well, first let me say, when you're choosing airlines, always pick Air Force One. No matter where they're flying. And it was an honor to fly with the president and to sit and talk with him for a number of times on the plane. And we did talk about what's going on in Illinois. And he knows full well, as he came into the General Assembly, the budget mess that we face. And he feels, as I do, that this is unfair to people of this state, that this great state has taken a beating in terms of its reputation because of the inability and unwillingness of the leaders to reach an agreement. He has one daughter headed for college and another in high school, and they're going through the pains of emptying the nest, what many of us have been through. But he sure knows it well, and he brought it up to the governor. When they were standing on the tarmac there as the plane landed, and they were talking about a number of things, and he stressed how important it was that we have, that we go forward in the state, and that the governor lead and try to find a way to break this budget impasse.
Second part of the question, besides appearances such as the one today, what are your colleagues from the state delegation into Washington? What is it that you're able to do to, I don't know if influence is the right word, but perhaps lend advice to try to get this process moving along? I mean, have any of the statewide people reached out to you and colleagues in Washington?
I've been around government for a while, and I've noticed something. If you don't have any money to offer, they're not that interested in you. And at this point, there's no federal rescue on the way. And so I express my feelings as certainly as a person representing the state in Washington, and as a lifelong resident of Illinois. I'm heartbroken at what's happened to our state. This is a great state, great people, great businesses, great leaders, great volunteers, you name it. And look at what we're going through. We've never faced this before, never. And the sooner it comes to an end, the better. And for where to point the finger of blame, I have my own theories, for sure, which maybe I've already shared with you a little bit. But I suggested locking all the doors in the Capitol. Keep them all in there. Don't let any of them leave until they reach an agreement.
Senator, this is a young school, even if you include the Sangamon State years, name recognition is going up, Division II athletics, what have you. What are your concerns about the growth of this university, being stunted by what's going on right now?
Well, higher education is a competitive business. And if you want to attract students, then you have to realize you're in competition. Some of the competition, I think, is out of the question unfair from the for-profit colleges and universities. But within the public universities and the not-for-profit and the private universities, there are options and competition. Think about this. If we in Illinois say to students like Jamie here, you know, when it comes to MAP grants, we can't help you. Well, she's forced to look around, maybe even delay her education while she looks around. So it's not fair to them. It's sure not fair to the school, which is ready to offer an affordable, quality education, to have to deal with these budget problems, not of their own creation.
Mr. Senator Durbin, question.
Oh, there you are.
The deadline is approaching fastly for that math program. Say the budget doesn't pass, or they don't pass the budget coming up. What happens?
Well, I think Chancellor Cook and others can answer that better than I can. But I can tell you, in the city of Chicago, when I go to certain parts of that city, Chicago State University's plight, everybody knows. There is a very serious concern that this major university and thousands of students won't be served at all, won't be able to continue their education. It's tough enough to go to school. Do you remember when you did? I assume you did. It's tough enough, you know, to go to classes and make sure you have a place to rent and keep the gas in the car and all the rest of it. And now they pull the rug out from under these students and say, sorry, you know, we got a political problem in Springfield. We'll get back to you later. That's just not fair. It's not fair at Chicago State. It's not fair at UIS.
Chancellor Cook, could you go to the microphone? Can you share with us, number one, what level of your budget comes from state funding? So what part are you missing? And what are you having to go through as a process, a manager, to keep the lights burning, to rearrange the assets that you have available, just to minimize the economic impact on the operations of the school?
Well, that's a great question, and it's a complicated one, so I'll try to answer it at least in part. First of all, we're missing about $18 million that, of course, we were planning on, and we need. That doesn't count the MAP money. We have about 700 students that are still waiting for their MAP money, and the maximum amount of the MAP grant, some of you will know, is about $5,000. So that's a critical element to each of those students' recipe for balancing their own personal budget that year. All of the U of I campuses have been planning for a long, long time, and do keep in mind that reductions in state support are not new to us. It's not as if this is the first time that's ever happened. If you've seen the graph that shows the gradual reduction going on, you know, for more than 10 years. So we've been tightening our belts for a long time, working very hard to be as efficient as we can be. But to be very specific about this year, we have been implementing about a 20% budget reduction. That includes the elimination of about 25 positions. We have not had to go into a layoff mode at the Springfield campus, and that is because we are a growing campus. So it's very fortunate for us, and we've been working hard to grow this campus for several years now. Because our enrollment is up, that means our tuition revenue is also up. So that has been helping to balance it off. And the big challenge for many other campuses is that at the same time they're facing these budget reductions in terms of the reduction of the state appropriation, they also have had significant declines in enrollment. So that is a huge double whammy for those campuses. So we're weathering this, difficult though it is, thanks in part to the increase in enrollment in our campus. But it's very, very difficult. Of course, we're doing, you know, all the other things that you would expect any institution will do in these circumstances. We're just spending less in every area of the budget. We're very carefully scrutinizing every expenditure, and it's just very, very difficult. But that having been said, we're still providing a very high-quality experience for our students, and that is our biggest commitment. Our basic budgeting principle is that we will protect the core of our university, and the core of our university is the students in the classroom with an outstanding teacher.
Mr. Treader, was just a couple weeks ago, EIU, their students had a rally saying that the said this isn't a partisan issue, but at that event, we saw they brought in a Democrat senator from another district with representatives in that Republican district who weren't allowed to speak. I see as a Democrat U.S. senator here. Did you reach out to the Republicans in this area to get their thoughts on this and have them be a part of this? I mean, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here as
Sure.
far as appearance.
Sure, we reached out, and I can't speak to the specifics of the Eastern event. I don't know who was invited or who didn't. We certainly reached out, both sides, both parties, and for whatever reason, some of the local folks chose not to be here. But again, I think certainly the case at Eastern, if you look at the damage being done, as has been stated, it varies a little bit by institution. Some institutions can weather the storm better than others, but clearly at the point we're at, even the healthiest institutions are really being damaged. So again, that was the point of this isn't partisan. Look at the 800,000 students throughout the state at community colleges, publics, privates. They don't wake up in the morning and think of it as a partisan issue. They think this is my future.
Senator, this financial dysfunction that we're seeing, is there, I know you beat the drum for medical research and at the SIU School of Medicine recently. Is there a concern that this word of other financial dysfunctions being, I guess, circulated nationally, maybe jeopardizes some research dollars, what have you, for state institutions?
I've been at this for a while as a member of the House and the Senate. When our state competes for federal grants, the first question asked, do you have state and local support? Are you going to put some money on the table? Whether you're talking about building a new runway at an airport or attracting money for railroad relocation, you pick it. Or if it's something to deal with education. And the honest answer is, I can't go forward now and represent that our state is willing to participate and make a commitment on a state basis because of this budget crisis. And it's played out, unfortunately, to slow down, at least at this point, slow down, if not stop, economic development efforts. We are just not in the game in many respects in Washington until we have a stable state government that is funding the basics, which include education to start with, safety net for the poor and helpless, education for middle-income families. If we're not doing those things, it hurts. And there have been things that have happened. You know, when the city of Chicago looks for a bond issue to help keep their schools open, they get into a tangle with local politics, and Wall Street pushes them away. They had to return the following week and pay a much higher interest rate because of the local political fight. So it isn't just Washington. It's the financial community around the country that's taking a look at our state, and they're disappointed. I am too.
In Jacksonville, we have McMurray College, and we also have Illinois College. We also have the Jacksonville Developmental Center, a number of factories that have closed. Our Chamber of Commerce has come to our area trying to get businesses to come in and use some of these buildings that are empty, and we're not competing with other states. Parents come to us and they say, yes, we want to send our students to college, but we don't have any money. But we also want them to go and get a skill that they'll be able to use and get a job. And so as a counselor, we're not only looking at just the financial aid aspect, but we're also looking at the job market. And we're trying to compete with states that are winning all of these other companies and the growth. And I think if our education fails, then we're not going to bring more companies and more jobs into our state. And so trying to counsel and help these students decide what they want to do with their future, but also watch as Illinois loses businesses is just what you say is happening. And we're not competing. So I think it's important that we bring those businesses back, we bring those jobs back, and we support education so the kids can get the skills to do these jobs. Thank you.
Are your students requesting materials for out-of-state colleges? Are you seeing more of a trend in that direction?
Yes, and the bordering states are saying you don't have to pay out-of-state tuition if you come here, if you're a bordering state. And that's one thing that Illinois has not done. And they're moving the FAFSA up to October 1. So the juniors this year that'll be seniors, instead of waiting till January 1, will be able to apply as early as October 1st. And so the money's going to be gone even sooner. And they're still having to make these choices, and we're waiting to see if our universities are going to be funded. So I think if we don't do something soon, October 1st is going to come pretty quick, and those kids are probably going to say, well, I don't even know if I can get funding here, so I'm going to look elsewhere. Thank you.
Actually, a follow-up, if I could, for you. As a Jacksonville resident myself, I'm just curious, as July 1st came and went last year, did you see a drop-off this year in Jacksonville enrollment as perhaps families began to realize that this situation was going to get ugly and they've already started looking elsewhere? And perhaps I'd ask the same question to Superintendent Gill as far as Springfield.
Yes, our population is very mobile. We see families moving in and out. Sometimes they're not even staying a month. And so it's very hard. The hardship is on everyone. And these families are also looking for jobs, and they're looking for assistance. And so, yes, they are in and out of our door quite a bit. Thank you.
I guess to answer your question, it is hard to determine one way or the other where some of our mobility comes from, but we know families are struggling and finding employment is difficult. And once again, I just want to echo what was said about the importance of having large university systems and even small and multiple university systems in your community. It's the educational system in your community that builds your community, and it's very important, not only for the students who attend there, but for the teachers and all of the support personnel that work to make a university successful. So it's a very important economic driver in any community, for sure. You had another question?
Yeah, I was
Jason?
wondering if you could give us a sense of how many students in District 26 rely on MAP grants to go to college.
Yeah, that's kind of a hard, once they leave, sometimes it's hard to track. I don't have that exact number, but I know there are specific stories and specific instances. And once again, I read your article yesterday in the newspaper about one of our specific students here in Springfield who is now struggling here at UIS because of those lack of MAP funds. So I think it is something that we need to pay more attention to and be able to track a little bit further just to help further the story along as well.
Dave and probably Chancellor Cook, we've been talking about higher ed this year in the context of there is no budget, there is no money this school year because of that. But it's not as if once there is a budget, everything is going to be easy again. Governor Rauner proposed last year a budget that I think cut 30%, somewhere in that area. The Democrats' own budget had about $100 million worth of cuts. How do you see, when this gets fixed, are you still looking at, I know Chancellor Cook, you said you've avoided layoffs so far. Can you keep avoiding that into the future with the types of funding that are now being talked about once there is a budget? It seems like there's some hardship that's going to come even when there is a budget.
Sure, and when you mentioned that proposed cut of 30% last year is this year, as bizarre as that is. We're talking about the same budget, so certainly that's, that cut by itself, which was aimed at the public universities, but the system overall. I think a couple of thoughts. One, we need some certainty that the state's going to come through at some point. Right now, with no appropriation, we're guaranteed nothing's happening. So yes, if a budget was passed, we would, in a sense, without any additional revenue sources, we would get in line with the rest of the state vendors, if you will, who are waiting to get paid. And so that's a following crisis immediately after, unless some revenue sources are introduced into any solution that's found. But you're right, and the state payment cycle right now is anywhere from 6 to 7 months. So that passing a budget, I think, without sufficient funds, which is, I think, one of the questions on both sides, wondering how we go forward. But again, with 90% of the money going out because of court orders, court decrees, et cetera, higher education's just been left twisting in the wind with no budget at all. We need to appropriate the money to higher education and figure out an appropriate way to pay for it. I think what you're already hearing is schools are trying to manage go along. We'll have to continue to do that, but with some certainty that there is going to be a budget. I mean, I think that helps set our planning going forward.
You guys have a position on whether the income tax rate should go back to 5%?
No, I don't think the coalition has weighed in on the revenue sources that are needed. That certainly is is one option.
If the governor were here, he'd say the Democrats just want to raise taxes and we need structural change. I mean, he's been going around the state saying all this as recently as Tuesday here in Springfield. Structural change is what we need, and I couldn't agree with you more. He would say that these things that you're talking about are unacceptable. You just need the Democrats to come buy into my structural change.
Well, right, and that's part of the debate. I guess the question is, can you crash a state or a system of higher education based on that reasoning? So it would seem to me to be self-defeating to essentially implode the system of higher education and then expect the state to, as has been mentioned here earlier, attract more businesses, create a living wage for people. Seems kind of counterintuitive to some of the debate that's going on.
Is it 80% funding for four-year schools, 90% for community colleges, and 100% for math grants? Is that better compromise than zero at this point?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, it most certainly is a better compromise than zero. Almost anything is better than zero, I think we can all agree. I just want to go back to one thought, and that is that point that others have made, that universities across Illinois and everywhere, of course, are real economic drivers in the community. I mean, you asked the question, you know, what more will we do here if things get worse and worse? And one of the things that I'm very, very committed to doing as much as possible is to retain our great employees. That's one of the reasons why we've not resorted to layoffs yet. The fact that the UIS campus, which of course is certainly not the biggest campus in Illinois by any means, but we are a tremendous economic driver in this community. And as we grow, we will become an even more important economic driver. This last year, the economic impact of UIS on the community was somewhere around $177 million. That's every year. That's all those salaries rolling over in the community. That's all the money students spend. That's the economic impact of our graduates. It's a huge impact on a city of this size. And if we can imagine as we continue to grow, which we are because we're adding many new majors and we're on a growth trajectory, then that number will go up. We certainly don't want it to go the other way. So we're working very, very hard to be that economic driver, and it's extremely important in this community.
Thank you for all being here. I'm sure we'd be happy to take some questions after. Thank you very much.